Final Fantasy XVI has been the topic of much debate, mainly focused on its new combat system. After spending extensive time with the demo, it's honestly the selling point of the game for me. There's the perfect amount of weight behind each strike, while maintaining a flow to combos that make attacks feel buttery smooth. Of course, it's elevated by the full support of its gargantuan production budget on full display during combat. However, I'm hesitant to praise that, as it's most likely the reason we've waited so long for a new installment. The main thing Final Fantasy XVI's combat gets right is speed. The quick succession of melee strikes is what keeps combat engaging, and the speed at which battles take place is what sets it apart from other action games. This is about as far away as you can get from the methodical turn-based origins of Final Fantasy. Alongside speed, another aspect that Final Fantasy XVI has perfected is flow. The influence of this flow is easily traceable to other Square Enix action games, Nier and Kingdom Hearts, whose devs undoubtedly worked on Final Fantasy. The key to flow in an action game is rhythm, the frequency of your attacks and how often you vary your inputs. Kingdom Hearts is excellent at this, as Sora moves with a magical slide that switches between satisfying combos and fast-paced dodging that makes Kingdom Hearts unique in the action RPG genre. The one thing that disrupts it is when you're required to use a spell you don't have a shortcut for, and then that flow snaps in half. Final Fantasy XVI has no such issue, as its rhythm is fantastic, with one caveat. It has one step that's far too useful, and a lot of design decisions surrounding the game make that problem even worse. Final Fantasy XVI's biggest combat flaw is its dodge. It's simply too convenient and too powerful for it to work effectively. Keep in mind, I'm only reviewing this after having played the demo, so all of this might disappear as I get later into the game. Now, the main problems aren't things like its duration, cooldown, and invincibility frames. Besides, those are technical subjects that I'm not qualified to speak on. The main problems come from the sort of things surrounding the combat, the first of which is the controls. Generally, in action games, players need to make a choice between attacking or dodging. It's an either-or. You can't really have it both ways or else the player feels too powerful. This is generally achieved by having the dodge button be a face button, so the player has to swap button presses. Final Fantasy XVI has R1 as a dodge button, which is an all too convenient placing. The player's finger is always touching it, and it doesn't interfere with any other notable inputs during combat. Other games like God of War have a setup like this, except dodge is a face button, and the other face buttons have more uses during battle, causing the player to swap where their fingers resting. Having the dodge button in such an accessible place creates an easily spammable tactic for players. This problem is worsened by the game's easy mode items, which trivializes the combat, although speaking of difficulty, I do have some concerns. Final Fantasy games have never had a difficulty option. For a turn-based JRPG, this is fine because you can always back out from a fight and go get some more powerful gear. However, in an action game, this presents a problem. It's about reflexes and a level of skill that goes way beyond planning. It might be fine and well balanced, but imagine if a Devil May Cry game had only one difficulty option and you begin to see the problem. I don't think the game will be too hard, as the express purpose of Final Fantasy XVI is to bring as many new players on board as possible, but doesn't that mean the game will be too easy? If there's no difficulty slider and the game is trying to be welcoming, and you combine that with the approximate 35-hour runtime, won't the combat get monotonous? I already know there's a lot of depth to the combat, and it's certainly a blast, but I don't know if I want to play a Devil May Cry game the length of the entire franchise. I'm sure the combat will be engaging at the very least, but a lack of challenge and a girthy game length may be a detriment to Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI is shaping up to be an incredible game, and this essay merely represents my minor worries after finishing the demo and messing around in combat mode. This legendary franchise has yet to have a universally panned mainline entry, and number 16 won't be the start of that.